and welcome to Grandma's Pocketbook. I'm a single senior living on Social Security, and the goal of my channel is to create a safe space where people living on a low income can get support. The topic of today's video is to share my typical budget about making ends meet on only Social Security. So, why am I sharing a typical budget living on Social Security? Well, there's two reasons. The first one is that since I am creating a safe space for people to talk about living on a low income, I feel like it is important for me to share my actual numbers. I know that there are people with that are creators who don't like to share their specifics, and I get that. But I think that if I am going to be having this space for you all to be confident that you are heard and that I understand what it means to live on a low income, that I need to put the numbers where my mouth is, basically. So I want you to know that I feel your pain. Your pain may be greater than mine. It may be not quite as bad. But for all of us who are trying to get those ends to meet at the end of the month when there's little to work with, um, a lot of people just don't get it. So I want you to know I get it. The second reason I wanted to share this typical budget is that I believe budgeting is important. I didn't always budget. When I was in my 20s, I didn't have any idea what a budget was, or that you needed to account for what came in and what went out. It just wasn't something that was taught to me. So I've learned that having a budget is important, and it is especially important when you have so much less to work with. You need to know what your money is going to do and how far it's going to go. So if you don't have a budget, I believe you need to create one. Your budget may look completely different than mine. This is the way I do it. If it works for you and you want to try and do it this way, that's great. If you have another way of doing it that works for you, then keep doing that. What I do is I use a zero-based budget. What that means, very simply, is that your income minus your expenses equals zero. So let's say your Social Security or your disability income is $1,700 a month. When you do zero-based budgeting, everything you spend or save should add up to $1,700. So 1,700 minus 1,700 will get you zero. You need to assign every penny a job. The second part of what I do in my typical budgeting is I use cash envelopes. That doesn't work for everybody. It works for me because it makes me more aware of what it is that I'm spending. I'm seeing the dollars, I'm seeing the pennies. Um, and that's something that I'll explain more when I do it. After this typical budget in April, I will show you my April's budget, and I will show you my cash stuffing. But for now, what we're going to do is just talk about what my budget is, how I work it out, and then we'll go from there. So here's my typical budget on Social Security. What I normally do on this is I take whatever is left over in my bank account and I put that as the balance forward. Since this is just a pretend budget, but using somewhat real numbers, there is no balance forward. My Social Security is $1,519 per month. That is, I do pay for my Part B on Social Security, so, or Medicare, excuse me, on Medicare. So That is after I have paid for Medicare. Next, I list out my fixed expenses. Fixed expenses are those things that you pay on every month. The amount doesn't change. You have to pay on them. Um, they're different than variable expenses because they are ones that you really can't adjust. The only way, I mean, you could adjust your insurance by shopping for something else. You could adjust your phone expense by going with a different company, but for now, this is where you're at. This is what you're paying, and it has to be paid every single month. So for me, my rent is $441 a month. I live in subsidized senior housing. My insurance is $106.55 a month. That varies penny here, penny there every month. It covers my car insurance and my rental insurance. My cell phone is $45.87 a month. I would like to get that down. I tried Mint Mobile, but it didn't work for me in my area. So I don't know what I might do with that, but that's what it is for right now. My electric is $73 a month. I budget that. That's what it is every month, all year long. And I do have Amazon Prime that I pay $7.41 for. That total is $673.83, and that leaves us with $845.17 to work with after all these fixed expenses are paid. Now we move on to variable expenses. Variable expenses are those things that are discretionary spending. You can either pay for them or not. I mean, you do have to pay for groceries, of course. Um, but the rest of them, you could either choose not to or um, adjust them depending on what's going on that month or that year, things you have planned. This for me is going to be what I typically do. So I like to keep a buffer in my account of around $30. This month I just put it at $35.17. It usually just is something I carry over to with after I have paid all these things or budgeted all these things and find something that's around $30. So for this month it's $35.17. For medical, I have $30. That's for copayments. Gifts, I have one for $100, and that would include birthdays and Christmas and any other thing that I might be getting a gift for somebody for. And you'll notice that over here on the side, I have the letters A or E. A stands for account. That means something that's going to stay in my checking account. I'm not going to take it out and put it into a money envelope. Um, I I prefer to pay for my copayments using my debit card. And then obviously this amount stays in my bank account just in case something else comes up. And the only other thing I keep in there is my gas money. These days I usually only fill up my tank once a month unless I'm going on some kind of trip. So beginning of the month, I'll go fill up the tank and use my debit card rather than pulling out cash for it. Okay, so going back, the next category is art supplies. I am an artist. Um, I used to do um, craft shows. I don't do them anymore. I have found that it's getting much more difficult for me to be able to handle the packing up, the setting up, the breaking down, getting it all back out to my car. So I am in the process of getting something set up online so that I can have an online store. And that would then also possibly change my income. Last year, I think I made a grand total of like $80 on the art that I did because I didn't do any craft shows. But hopefully that'll change a little bit, not too much, because then that affects this right here, my rent, which is based on my income. But yeah, so art supplies I put is $20. I guess we can consider it more of a hobby, but for me, it's important to keep that going. Next is car maintenance for $100. I have a 2012 Honda Civic, and it has over 200,000 miles on it. So I do need to keep the car maintenance amount up pretty high. It's a trooper. It keeps going and going. So it's not like I'm investing a whole lot of money in it, but I want to be able to keep driving as long as I possibly can, and I do not want a car payment. So that's why I make this a decent amount. Entertainment is $50. That's whatever it is that I feel like I want to go out and do. It might include a day trip somewhere. It might include going to a movie. I don't really go to the theater all that much, but those type of things. Family fun is $30. I have a couple of grandchildren, and this money is set aside for doing things with them. Um, Next is groceries. I have that as $110, and I'm going to make some videos about grocery shopping and cooking. In addition to the $110 that I set aside for groceries, I get SNAP, and I only get $40 a month. I know some people get less, some people get more. I have not been able to figure out what the formula is for this, but well, why I get what I do and why somebody else gets something different, but I get $40 a month. Um, Next category is HAPA, Health and Beauty Aids in Household, which includes things like um, paper goods and shampoo and things of that nature, cleaning supplies. Then we talked about gas. I put it at $30. Right now, I'm putting $100 aside for vacation fund. Even with this tight budget, it's important to me to have something to look forward to, and usually that's a little mini vacation somewhere. It might just be a weekend away, but it's something that I can look forward to. Have Get into a different situation, not the same four walls. Clothing and personal, I set that aside for some clothing replacement. Personal would also include haircuts and things of that nature. Move, I have set $50 for. Like I said, I'm currently living in subsidized housing. There is a place that I have been on the list for over 2 years that is within a mile of one of my sons and my grandchildren. And I want very much to move there. It would be a larger place. It would be much better for me. And I understand that right now I'm fourth on the list. And if you've ever been on a list for subsidized housing, you know that it can take years. And just because you're at a certain place on the list, it doesn't mean it's going to happen tomorrow. But I am setting aside the money for that so that I have it to pay movers when the time comes. So that total is $695.17, taken from the $845.17, means $150 left for me to put into savings. So as you see, every single penny, all of this adds up to 1519. Everything is being given a job. Now, I know some people might say, if you're a purist, the buffer really doesn't have a job. It's not really going for anything. But I think it's important when you're talking about a checking account where you don't, if you figure your numbers wrong or something happens that you forgot about. I mean, I'm sure that there are people out there that have streaming services that you went ahead and you got um, a 7-day free subscription on it and you forgot about it and you didn't cancel it in time, and then that comes out of your account. So I'd like to have a buffer for something like that. So it's still, to me, it's still something that has been given a job. Next, you'll see these three columns over here, and this is what I use to be able to determine what bills I need to be able to put in the envelopes. So I figure out what it is. If it gives us $100, get five $20 bills and put that in the envelope. So I go down and do all of that, total the number of bills so I can do a double check. I know that it should come out to $750. So I'll need 34 20s, 7 10s, and that comes out to $750 that I will be putting in cash envelopes. Again, I will explain the cash envelopes more when I get into it. If you've never heard of that, or you're curious and you want to know, what I also do is if an envelope gets to a certain point where I really don't want to have that cash here sitting at home, I will take it and put it into a savings account so it's set aside. Unfortunately, none of my cash envelopes really have enough in them for me to be overly concerned about, but um, hopefully that will change soon. So this is it. This is my zero-based budget. This is a typical budget for me on Social Security. I know some people are living on far less. I know some people have a little bit more, but it's still the same basic idea. You don't have a huge amount of money that you need, that you can work with, and you do have expenses that you have to meet. And you want to know, it's nice to know at the end of the day that I do have money set aside for gifts. I do have money set aside to have a little fun sometimes with family or by myself, that everything is accounted for, and that even though it's not a whole lot, it gives me peace of mind in knowing that I will be able to get through my month. I will have a little bit of fun along the way, and it brings a calm to me. I hope this is helpful to you. Um, if you have any other ideas of videos you would like to see from me, I do have plans for a lot of other things, all of them pertaining to people who are on a low income, Social Security, disability, making minimum wage, whatever the situation is. Most of my videos will relate to people who are seniors living on Social Security, but hopefully you can glean something from them, even if that isn't your exact situation. Well, thank you for sticking with me on this, and I look forward to giving you more content. Bye bye.